And now it's Deborah Kobylt Live.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me today on Deborah Kobylt Live. And I'm proud to introduce to you two friends who are very knowledgeable in the world of NFTs, right? Everybody's reading about NFTs. What are they? How do you buy them? What's this thing called Coinbase crypto? How do I get into it? They're both here to join us to give us the ABCs of how to get involved. So first, I'd like to introduce Courtney and then Rupert. And if you could both tell us, I'm going to start with you, Courtney. Tell us a little bit about what you do and how you're involved in this whole space.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having me here today. My name is Courtney Kovacevich. I spent 20 years in corporate advertising sales, but I'm also a lifelong art collector. So I've collected fine arts for more than 20 years. And in the fall, I started to familiarize myself with the NFT space. And so I've spent the last 7 months immersed into NFTs and Web3. And it's been an amazing space, amazing opportunity. And I really see it as the next way that people will collect fine arts among other assets and intellectual property that are created as NFTs. Currently, I am the head of creators at an NFT and social media platform that's completely decentralized. So I work with fine artists all over the world to onboard them onto NFTs. I have a female initiative there called Trailblazers, where I highlight and support and shine a light on great female talent worldwide. I'm also the CMO of an upcoming metaverse project, which is a generative project with 10,000 membership passes that are created as NFTs. And so I'm helming that. And then I'm also in the middle of putting together a fund that will be investing in Web3 technologies. So I'm the co-founder of that.
And as your side hustle, you're trying to help me figure out how to get into the world of NFTs. Let's not forget that. Yeah. I'm always calling her up going, wait, what do I do first? Which is what gave me the idea to do this show. And then, of course, I know Rupert and his phenomenal gallery and some of the work that he's doing. I'm getting to you, Rupert. And when I realized what now you're involved with, and Courtney, I thought this would be a great opportunity to have a show about this and introduce people, by the way, young, middle-aged, and old, who really are not quite sure how to get into this whole thing. So Rupert, let's talk about you a little bit, talk about your gallery, your background, and about some of the NFTs. I visited your gallery that are available, and it's quite reasonable too. It's easy to get into this. Go ahead.
It is, yeah. So well, thanks for having me again.
Yeah.
I've been looking forward to coming back on the show. So yeah, since we last spoke, I've now come on board as the Chief Growth Officer for company called Kollectiff, which is a Web3 venture studio. And we basically do anything at the intersection between the blockchain and media, because the Web3 umbrella is pretty broad. So we do anything from NFT to tokenizing of content to metaverse builds. Our main aim is to basically take brands and existing IP and artists into the metaverse. And obviously, we spoke about this before. The metaverse is kind of vague as to what exactly it is, and it depends on who you ask. And
what
our
is
ecosystem.
I'm gonna when you're done there, I'm gonna have you tell our people what is this metaverse thing. But go ahead.
I'll definitely get to that for sure. So Kollectiff is an interesting kind of setup because we have our kind of, I'd say, called our bespoke offering, which fits under kind of an agency model. We then have our innovation lab, which basically develops a bunch of tools that we can then offer to brands so they can build Web3 and NFT campaigns on their own. And then the bit that you've alluded to a couple of times is our gallery, which is our IRL or in real life offering that basically helps bridge that gap between everyone in the NFT space is just kind of talking to themselves and where the consumer is. And we felt like we needed this face-to-face platform in a high footfall area that allowed us to really educate people and show what NFTs are all about, how to buy, like what is a metaverse, and the best way to do that is actually in the real world and not in the digital world, really. So yeah, the gallery opened in the end of March, and we did our first event in partnership with the Creative Arts Agency, CAA. And since then, we've had basically a show every week, Yeah, the plan is to basically do educational events and showcase artists every week until we open our next one, which will be in Miami.
Well, you know what I liked about this, because I visited the gallery, and I know you've had quite a few events, and thank you for that private tour that I got the other day. You know, this is not that expensive of a space. Let's say you are curious about an NFT. I was surprised. I thought it was going to be like, you know, whatever, mega thousands, mega millions. It wasn't. I mean, just for a few $1,000s. Let's say I went to your gallery to purchase one, right? As it started from a few $100s up to a few thousand. It really wasn't that bad. I love how you showcased it up on the wall, right? So if anyone has gone to an open house, especially out here in California, very often in some of these really lovely newer homes, there's NFTs, I don't know, being displayed as artwork on the wall, right? On a screen. It's kind of becoming a little more normalized. And what you both said to me was, right now, I know that you have to deposit your money into a Coinbase type of thing, which I'm going to have you guys explain. But you're also working to normalize it so that you can just pay with a credit card. Is that right? Both of you jump in whenever you want.
Yeah, so you can basically buy NFTs with a credit card. Mostly it's done, there's like on different blockchains. The one with the most value in the market at the moment is on the Ethereum blockchain. There's other NFTs on the Solana blockchain and Polygon. But we mainly focus on Ethereum because that's where the most value is for the current market. But what we've realized over the last month is it's still like a big gap between where like normal consumers are and where the kind of NFT people are. And so we're actually introduced the ability to now buy an NFT using a credit card, but you would still have that ownership on the chain, so to speak. It just removes that barrier to entry. But we're really trying to onboard people into actually doing it through Ethereum because that is the on-chain way of doing it. But the gallery's here to educate and help people on board through that whole experience anyway.
Right, which you also, I know you have classes, right? Like NFT 101. What is an NFT? How do you even deposit the money into one of these blockchains? Courtney, can you explain that to me? Like make it super basic, like preschool level for people who don't quite understand, I being one of them until recently.
Explaining how you create an NFT on the blockchain?
Yeah, I mean, where do you deposit your money? I know there's also Coinbase, right? A lot of people like that. You know, a lot of people aren't in the crypto world as of now, right? So how do they then get their cash, their dollars, and deposit it into a space where they can then purchase an NFT if they're not using a credit card? Like, could you explain that?
Oh yeah, definitely. So generally, when we're talking about NFTs, about 80% of the market's on Ethereum, which is what Rupert mentioned.
Yeah.
So the most widely used wallet to transact with Ethereum is called MetaMask. And so a lot of people use MetaMask to log in and out of OpenSea. So allowing, which is the largest marketplace, to go in and purchase an NFT there through a MetaMask wallet. But that would also work on Nifty Gateway or Super Rare or Rareable or a lot of these other marketplaces that all sell or have Ethereum-based NFTs. What I originally did when I got into the space was I was looking for a little bit of a centralized platform so that I could learn and understand. And if I needed something, there would be a customer service that I could reach out to. So I actually started with a Coinbase account, not a Coinbase wallet, but a Coinbase account. And there I was buying my Ethereum, and then I was sending it to my MetaMask wallet, and then I was transacting. It takes a little bit more time, and there are certain costs that can be associated with both buying and then also sending the Ethereum. But for me, the peace of mind as I was starting into the space was really helpful. And so that's certainly something that people can do when they're just getting in and starting to transact and explore buying cryptocurrency.
Right. Compare this for me to something that may have felt foreign to people years ago, like credit cards, right? I remember talking to my dad, and he said, well, when a credit card first came out, it was like, wait, You mean I'm not going to pay with cash or a check? And it just seems so foreign. And now, of course, like everybody has a credit card. Could you explain like how this will eventually become so normal that it's not so confusing to people? Like if you can put it in words where like it makes sense.
Yes, I'd have to think about that. That's something that feels that second nature to us. I mean, a close representation, I think, of a behavioral perspective might be social media. Like I think back to in the 90s when there wasn't social media and you're growing up, and now it's like every single thing that you could possibly want to learn about or understand about a certain area or a person or a certain career, that's all available. You're seeing all of the specifics of a day on social. You can completely immerse yourself, and it's completely transformed the way that we interact with other people and create communities. And so that's the closest thing I have to something that I think will be normalized, the way that we log on to the internet through a wallet, through decentralized platforms, which is really like the blockchain. On our platform, the platform that I work at, you can enter and exit with an email and a password, but once you're in there, you navigate with your wallet. So your wallet becomes effectively who we recognize you as a user on the platform. And we don't have any advertising because we're not selling your data. We are making a small fee on every transaction. And so that's really a decentralized platform, and in many ways, another use case for the wallet. But as it relates to buying NFTs with a wallet, I'm not sure, Rupert, if you have a different analogy that's maybe more specific to transactional.
Yeah, I think the best way to think of crypto, it sounds obvious when I say it, but it's digital currency that isn't necessarily kind of fixed or owned by anyone, right? The government can't really manipulate it. The market affects the price of your currency. And these digital wallets that we've been mentioning, like MetaMask and Coinbase, is an exchange, but it also has a Coinbase wallet. This is a place for you to store your currency and a way to track your currency and trade in and out. So it's kind of also a foreign exchange element to it as well. And I think when it comes to this idea of how does like owning art, the idea of owning art translate to owning an NFT, it's what we say is on-chain, on the blockchain, means it's completely transparent. Anyone can find out who owns that piece of art. It's not like now if I asked you who owns, I'm showing my ignorance in the art world here, like a really famous Picasso painting or a really famous Monet, like the ones that are owned by private collectors, unless you're really in the art world, you wouldn't know who owns it. But with NFTs and the blockchain, because it is all open source, you can find out exactly who owns what, unless they've moved it like into a hard wallet. But that's like another point. It just means that the idea of ownership is fully transparent, as is the idea of owning these digital currencies.
Yeah, how many people are in the world of purchasing NFTs, right? It's still really, really young. So if you're interested in this space, it's a great time to get in, right? And you can get in easy. You don't have to just jump in with a lot of money. Is that correct, Rupert? Because you sell them there at the gallery.
Yeah, I think it's funny. I mean, in terms of numbers of people involved in buying NFTs, it's low for sure. But in terms of volume of money being spent on NFTs, it's extremely high. I don't want to be misquoted, but it's some insane numbers. Just I think it's like billions of dollars a month is being traded on OpenSea. And there's new marketplace. OpenSea being is a marketplace for NFTs. Right. And there's emerging NFT marketplaces which are, taking a percentage of that volume, and they're doing like 300 to 400 million a month, and they're kind of a small player in the space. So yes, it's a small number of people doing NFTs or buying NFTs, but for me, I kind of look at NFTs as it stands as a big audience of people treat it like still the crypto market, like trading crypto, but with pretty pictures, and it's a bit more fun. Like there's definitely a big portion of the market that look at NFTs in that way. I think what Courtney's doing is much more focused, and we're doing at the gallery is much more about bringing people out of that, because I think that has negative connotations to it and drives all sorts of horrible stigma, that because there's so much money to be made in it, there's a lot of fraudulent activity within the NFT space. But ultimately, NFTs are all about the art and tokenizing art and all the exciting things you can do with the tokenized piece of art, in terms of rewarding the artist and continuing to reward the artist and also rewarding the owner. But
let me ask you this. Go ahead.
No. And I was going to say, it's we're so early in the space that it is full of projects that are not really what NFTs are about. There's a lot of projects which are called like PFPs, or profile picture projects, which are really kind of kickstarted by the Bored Ape Yacht Club, which is the one that is obviously all over the press, and they're valued at whatever 350 to 400 grand minimum for a profile picture, right? So for most people, that doesn't make a lot of sense, and that's also not really what NFTs are about, because that's like a cartoon monkey, and obviously it has its own intrinsic value based on the community that supports it. But you can say the same for like Andy Warhol. Andy Warhol was only as famous as the people around him made him to be, and how much money people were willing to spend on his art. And the same goes for any collection in the NFT space. But because there is only a small amount of people in the NFT space, only a few of these projects can succeed. But when it comes to fine art coming into the space, I feel like that's going to be the real opportunity to take NFTs mainstream.
I want to make sure we talk about that, and about artists, and about female artists. I wanted to talk to you about that in particular, Courtney. But before that, how do you make sure you don't get scammed? I love the story of the collector who purchased on an NFT the very first tweet, I believe. Don't quote this, but I think for $28 million, was it that amount of money? And he couldn't even turn it around and sell it, I think, for like $250. Of course, he removed it. It's like, okay, wait a minute. Who does that? Who goes in, spends, I guess he was taking a bet thinking that it was going to really go for more. How do you make sure that doesn't happen to you? I mean, not that many of us have $28 million. Not that many of us have that kind of money, but you know what I mean? Just to make sure that you don't end up where you're spending, I don't know, let's say for somebody, $20,000 is a lot of money and it's suddenly worth $3. Do you know?
Totally. I mean, I don't know, Courtney, what your take on this is. I mean, there's two things. Firstly, anyone who's involved in the space right now is going to have some kind of risk or like fraudulent thing happen to them. It's just the nature of this current market, unfortunately. But it's, that it is getting less and less. I think we've kind of ridden the main wave of that, and people are a bit more attuned to it. But it's still a speculative investment, right? Crypto is still a speculative investment for a lot of people. I mean, we as a team are very like kind of crypto maxis because it's the space we're in, but it's still a speculative bet. And I think the same goes for any purchase of any NFT. It's still a speculation at the end of the day. I think with that tweet, it was something he paid 2.3 million for the tweet, and then he tried to sell it back to Jack Dorsey, and anyway, that didn't work. But again, it's like, these people were making bets in the early stage of NFTs and buying, a JPEG of a rock and just hoping that would do something. And, the value was high, and it's about pulling out early enough, because these things never really last that long. You've kind of got to like ride with the speculation. And again, that's just the nature of the market. It's completely oversaturated compared to the amount of actual collectors. There's a lot more kind of volume of projects than there are collectors. And so that's going to be inevitable.
Courtney, what do you say? Because I know you told me do your research, right? Get on Twitter and just start looking and learning about what other people are purchasing, artists to follow, maybe before you jump in. What would you say about that?
Yeah, definitely. So most of these platforms, not all the time, but can verify a collection or an artist. So they have a blue check mark like you would see on any of the other web social platforms. That's always a good way to understand that is in fact the legitimate collection, and so you should buy from that. If the collection or the artist isn't verified, you can certainly go to their social handles that you know them from and click on links that are provided there. that should take you obviously to the collection that's theirs. There's also Discord. So most of Web3 communications and community building happens on two platforms, which is Twitter and Discord. You can sign up for Discord. Discord is basically like a community building software where you can go in and interact with other people that have bought an artist or a certain collection. And they also communicate a lot about the artists, any upcoming news or any upcoming news around a certain collection that you might buy. So the difference being like Andy Warhol that Rupert mentioned versus like Bored Ape Yacht Club, which is a collection, or World of Women, which is a collection. They'll also have links there that are provided that are the genuine links to the collection. But I think the same amount of risk would happen sort of even in physical collection, just making sure that people aren't copying other people's work or misusing intellectual property or copyright. But those are generally the best ways to look up verified collections. From a research perspective too, yeah, I mean, it's always good to look up the artist and understand their background. And if you're familiar with them, then you should have a sense of confidence in being able to buy their work in a digital capacity. But it's always nice too, on the collection side, to look at the founders and make sure that you know who they are and that they have a proven track record and that you're buying into the collection and the community that they're building, because it's a little bit more complicated, the structure of a collection, but there's definitely value that exists with owning intellectual property or having intellectual property that's part of some larger brand or some larger entity that's in the Web3 or NFT space. So.
I also love, Rupert, at your gallery, some of the artists shown there, the NFT artists, were Ukrainian artists. Some were children as well. And it was stunning work. It wasn't particularly expensive, but what I'm getting at is it appealed to me. So also what's important is look at something that appeals to you, right? I know, Courtney, that you have two pieces that I think you purchased from World of Women, correct?
Yes.
And I remember when we spoke, you said you liked them. You liked the artists. You followed who the artists were. And that said something to me. Like when I was at Rupert's gallery, I saw pieces that spoke to me. So if anything, find something that you really like and maybe get in at the bottom level of, you know, so you don't completely lose your shirt, right? That's what I would like to say to people. Go ahead, please. Go ahead, Rupert.
No, I think the point, because you mentioned about getting in early. I mean, just going back to say the Bored Ape Yacht Club and even World of Women. I mean, all of these projects started with that low price too, right? Like when they first came out, both of those projects had a starting price of around $250, right? That was, and if you got in early, then you made a 10,000x ROI on your investment, you know? And so I think it's to be really savvy in this place. And if you're trying to get into this, into NFTs as like, for investment purposes, then you do have to be really kind of involved. You can't just like, I mean, obviously you could be super lucky. And I think most people who bought a Bored Ape or even a World of Women early feel like they were lucky. I don't think anyone did it based on research, honestly. But you know, there's been plenty of other projects like Bored Apes that have also gone nuts. There was one from last Friday called Moonbirds, which is a project by Kevin Rose. One before that, this has had a similar trajectory, was like Clone X, which was then bought by Nike. Like, people didn't think there would ever be another Bored Ape, but like there will be. But it's all about, it's like a potion of every element has to be right. You have to have the right community. You have to have the right amount of cheerleaders on Twitter saying the right stuff. The art has to be good. There's no kind of secret sauce. There's a lot of the potion just has to be right at the right time.
And what about women in this space, Courtney, in terms of women artists, in terms of people getting involved like yourself? Talk to me about that.
Yeah. So I speak a lot to women in different areas and careers, and I focus a lot on female empowerment through an organization that I run. And I was particularly interested in the adoption of Web3 and NFTs from a female and women perspective. And it's really interesting because there still are these big gaps. I mean, female artists, from the latest data that I had read, and I'm certain it's been updated from, I think it was like December or January of this year, but like, it's like 15% of the creators are women, and then 5% of the sales are attributed to female artists. And that's concerning that we can't, you know, that we are at that stage, and we're still very early. So there's still a lot of opportunity. But when I do speak to women, I remind them that Web3 is being built right now as we're here talking, right now as we're discussing this space is being built, and we have the power to influence and create a Web3 that we want to reflect from all of the things that we learned that didn't work in Web2. More inclusivity, more opportunity for women. There are more developers that came into the Web3 space to build Web3 in the last couple of months than ever in history before. And so it's really important that we gather other women to make sure that we build for an internet that we want to reflect for generations to come, women's participation, women founders, women contributors. So I'm so glad you asked, because it's a really important thing that we be aware of and that we participate in and that we forge a path for.
I want to remind people, you're talking about Web3, and I'll get to you in a second, Rupert. Web2 is something that we use all day, right? It's the YouTube, it's whatever. And Web1 is what? Google. I mean, we've been going, isn't that right? Like we've been starting and building. So for people who are like, wait, what's this thing? It becomes something that we use every day. And as you said, it's still building. So read about it, look into it, stay abreast of all this stuff so it doesn't become a foreign thing to you. And if you're, you know, in terms of what Web3 is, and if you're interested in the NFTs, learn about it, learn about where to put the money, learn about crypto. Go ahead. Sorry, Rupert.
No, I mean, just on the back of Courtney's point about women, I was going to say weirdly, but it's not so weird. The first 3 events that we've had at the gallery were women focused, just because it feels like that's where the biggest education has to happen. And I think that's also where a lot of the interesting projects are coming from. And so we have been very heavily focused in championing women as well. But and to your point, Courtney, I'd say we are also trying to bring people in through the gallery just to onboard them. So like, it's usually like they have like 1 or 2 touch points. One is they like come to the gallery and they look at the art. The next one is like, oh, how do I buy the Ethereum? And then the next one is like, how do I then store it? How do I buy NFTs? So, you know, it's meant to be a bit of a journey. And most people who came to our first event have come to all of them. And so we're definitely building a bit of a community. And the other thing I'd like to add is that the middle floor of our gallery is actually a Web3 members club. So we're trying to build a broader kind of collective mindset, I guess, around Web3, and Kollectiff, the agency, is going to be the facilitator of a number of different projects. And that's kind of what we're trying to do.
Right. And remember, you're also giving, you know, classes on how to get involved and do this. So for people who just don't quite get it, like me, I think it's very, very valuable to take something like that and introduce people. That was great. And before I let you both go, Courtney, I'm going to let you respond to that, or if there's anything else you want to add, you know, just so people understand this entire conversation on how to get in. It's really not, as time goes on, it's not going to seem as foreign, right?
Yeah. I mean, a good anecdotal story is we have a family friend, and he was here a couple of weeks ago, and he's 79, and he gave me some money, and he wanted me to invest it in crypto and consider NFTs for his granddaughter. And like, to me, that's a really interesting use case of like thinking about this technology and the value it brings for generations to come, and that it doesn't matter your age or background, that you can invest with whatever you have available, whether it's initially in cryptocurrency, but then also in NFTs. That is accessible. That's one of the most beautiful and wonderful things about NFTs, is that it so democratizes access. And I've seen it as such a powerful tool to help people to get into investments and community building and participating in these elements that they might not otherwise have had access to. And I just think it's a really powerful tool when used well. And the space is this giant community that really just wants to lift other people up. And I'm so impressed every day by the very genuine nature of the people who are in the space that are wanting to help others both come in and then also succeed. And there are a lot of resources. I'm really impressed with what Rupert's put together, but there are definitely, videos and courses and communities that you can join that will certainly help you as you begin to enter into Web3 and NFTs. So.
Gosh, I'm so excited that you both came on our show. Would you come back? Because I would love for you to both come back as this continues to evolve. Rupert, do you have anything you'd like to say and respond to Courtney?
No.
How about this? Go to the gallery or look online, because some of my favorites yet were actually there. I really fell in love with a few of them very, very much, particularly because of the meaning and where all of that was coming from the artist, which is what's happening over in Ukraine. And it spoke to me deeply. And also some of the artists that I've been introduced to by Courtney, some of the female artists, they were bright and beautiful. And I really felt who these people were, these artists coming through the pages. So it's such an exciting way to get involved in the world of art. And I see it as, gosh, it's only going to continue growing and becoming, honestly, I think more mainstream, right? Especially if we can use our credit cards.
100%.
Yeah. Well, you know, like they're coming to Twitter and Instagram, Facebook has always been really public about it. TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn is having some sort of NFT. It might just be more of like the smart contract side, but I foresee this being a very different conversation a year from now. Definitely.
Shout out, please, Rupert, to your gallery one more time.
Yeah, so we welcome anyone who's listening to the show to come to the gallery either for an event or a private viewing. Both can be booked and through the website, which is thegallery.collective.com. We have an event usually every Thursday or Friday, and then our educational talks or workshops are usually on a Wednesday.
And Courtney, a shout out to anything you're doing you want people to know about?
Yeah, I'm at Hyper, which is hyprr.com. So you can go there and look at some of our artists. I'm also working on 2 projects yet to be announced, but my Twitter handle is my last name, so at Kovacevich. And there I'll be updating on the 2 projects that I'm working on, and would love the support and feedback and for everyone to be part of that community. So
thank you both so much for educating me, for educating our audience. I really appreciate it. And everybody, you can find this conversation on my show, Deborah Kobylt Live. We post it on YouTube, Facebook, IGTV, and then LinkedIn also, Twitter, and then all audio platforms too. Like we're on iHeartRadio and Apple and just about anywhere you get a podcast, video podcast, just put in my name, Deborah Kobylt Live, and you'll find us. And I want to thank you both very much. I want to thank you both for normalizing this for me. And I'll see you both very soon. And before we go, it's been great. And before we go, I have a commercial to play for my audience, Annie's. So you're going to hear a little bit about that. Bye-bye, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
I love individual jewelry pieces, and I recently discovered Annie's Kit Clubs and started making stunning earrings and necklaces that are all one of a kind. Each kit comes directly to my home, complete with real stones, pearls, crystals, and semi-precious gems to create any style from casual to formal. Kits are beginner friendly, they come with all supplies and instructions, but you know what? It doesn't end there. Annie's Kit of the Month Club also includes crochet and knitting clubs to make your own socks, gloves, and afghans. There's also a creative girls club, a young woodworkers club, so much more. Get 75% off of your first month of a kit subscription with the promo code DKLive75. Go to Annie'sKitClubs.com and discover a relaxing, unique way to create something truly special for you and your family. That's DKLive75 to get